So the lights are coming out and the cockroaches are starting to scatter. Marty up north, welcome back. It's been a heck of a week.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Happy weird day today. It's Valentine's Day and it's Ash Wednesday. If you have any followers that are devout Catholics, I guess, or Christians.
I think many Christians.
So happy Ash Wednesday. Tough day for the people, because Ash Wednesday is the start of Lent. You're supposed to kind of fast, but then you're having your Valentine's dinner. How do you reconcile the two? I'll leave it up to them.
Yeah, fair enough. But it's been an interesting week, of course. All kinds of things going on. Lots of weird things said in Parliament. I think, why don't we just get into that first and foremost? Because you don't usually hear this kind of language in Parliament. Even though it wasn't said, it was implied, and we all know what it means. But this has to do with, well, the Arrive Can.
We're going to talk about what this has to do. I mean, this has to do with money being blown, like a lot of money.
A lot of money. Let's just play the clip here.
They got IT contracts, even though they admit they do no IT work. $250 million. WTF.
Here, here. I can't hear the clip, but I've seen it before, so I know what he's saying. And then at this point in the video, the speaker hits his special little button, and then he turns off all the mics, and then you can see how they're all scrambling, right? Where they're trying to figure out if there was a violation of protocol. Yeah,
I think you can hear it now.
I'm going to ask, we are dangerously close to crossing the line in terms of what is considered parliamentary language. That is an abbreviation which is commonly used with language, which is commonly understood not to be parliamentary. I'm going to ask the honourable opposition leader, please, to withdraw that comment and to use parliamentary language, please.
Where's the funds?
There you go.
Okay, that is way too funny. Where's the funds? Draw more attention to it. Get a clip that'll go out on the internet, of course, and people will talk about. That's funny. That's really funny.
And I remember when Parliament used to be clever like that. You know, people would have like plays on words and clever insults and things like that. It's gotten boring, but yeah, there's still the odd moment like that. But this is in reference to something very serious, right? I mean, back during the pandemic, the government of Canada, wanted to track travelers coming in and out and make sure they had their vaccinations, and they had a process in place to do it. Remember when we used to fly, you had to fill out those little white cards? They worked perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. But they used the opportunity to try and push some new software on us, more controls, and that's the Arrive Can app. And now 3 years later, this week,
before we get into that, because I want to concentrate a little bit on the Arrive Can app, because it's all kind of getting washed into the panels of history at this point.
Yep.
The Arrive Can was the final straw. It was the end of the road for Canadians saying we've done enough. We did all the mandates, we did the distancing, we put up plexiglass and paid for it. We did all of this stuff. We sent employees home. We did all of this.
We got vaccinated. We wore masks. We distanced. We did it all.
All of it. And then they said, oh, okay, well, now you got to use this app on your phone to go across borders. And truck drivers were like, this is too much. We were the heroes for all of this time, staying in their trucks, not being able to use washrooms, not getting food on the road, like all of these restrictions that they had. And People saw them as the heroes, but as soon as they said, "No, we're not doing this. This is just egregious and it's intrusive." We have all the checks. We have our nexus. We have all of this stuff. You know who we are. You don't need to be adding more surveillance on us. We don't want it, and we're not gonna take it. And this is when the government doubled down and they said, "No, if you don't do it, you're gonna see fines of over $6,000."
$6,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was that was it. And then that's when people
Worse
started
than a
waking up.
$6,000. Yeah, you could get a $6,000 fine just for not having the app on your phone, and for them not being able to verify. And then they could default and send you to a quarantine camp. Remember quarantine camps? I mean,
Yes.
people have already forgotten quarantine camps. Like, we had quarantine camps. We sent 10,000 Canadians to quarantine camps.
That's right.
Like, that's insane.
Well,
yeah. So this is, yeah.
Well, it's absolutely egregious because it's not a woulda, coulda, shoulda, coulda, woulda when it comes to the government. They implemented this. Like, there are bad rules that get, passed into law and they just don't get implemented. They get put on the books and then people are like, well, I'm not enforcing that. These are my fellow citizens. No, they actually put it through. And not only did they enforce it, but they punished people who refused to enforce it. And this was a real step in the, overstepping.
Well, I mean, we don't want to go, I don't want to go there too much today, but we had people do a lot of things that I never thought they would have done in their lifetime. You know what I mean? Like, there were rules that became so silly. I mean, yeah, there were restaurants that asked to see your vaccine passport. There are businesses that shut down. I mean, there's Walmarts that put like cages so that you could, anyways, it was an insane time. It was insane. And
but this is what led to the Freedom Convoy happening. All of this stuff was this one app that they forced on everybody and would not let go of. And this was the straw that broke the camel's back. And now we're hearing about all of the corruption that came in on just making this a thing.
Yeah, but it's a typical government project to start with, which is, whether it's a gun registry or the accounts payable system. It's they hire consultants. They can't do it internally. The consultants oversell the product. The next thing you know, something that's promised to be an $80,000 app in this case ends up being 54 and more. Remember last week I said it's more. It's so much more right now. The Auditor General said today, this week in committee, the Auditor General says she can't even audit this properly. She's never seen anything this bad. Like, the money was spent so carelessly on this app and the records were so poor that she can't even determine. She's like, as far as I can tell, it's at least $60 million. So if that's all she can find, imagine how big it is, right? And that's where, but in that $60 million, there's one little subcontractor called GC Strategies, and they're one of the ones who are in the middle of this storm, and that's who Pierre was referring to in the House of Commons today, because they got paid a lot of money for this app. But now people went digging into GC Strategies and they found GC Strategies, GC Strategies Inc., GC Strategies Limited, GC Strategies one word. And it turns out that single organization that can't even say before committee what they did for this app has been paid $250 million in the last 10 years in tendered and untendered sole source contracts. It's out of control, man. It's completely out of control. And Canadians should be outraged. Like, it's $250 million. I'm outraged right now just talking about it.
Well, Canadians don't want to see resignations. They want to see perp walks over this. Like, it's gotten that bad. We're not talking about a $15 glass of orange juice anymore. Like, we're really in massive corruption territory.
It's fraud. It's fraud. I mean, yeah, if it was just somebody who, paid too much for something, I go, yeah, that's the government. They're inefficient. This isn't inefficiencies. No. This is into fraud territory. Like, this is fraud territory. So, yeah, and it's part of an interesting week. I mean, today is also, you said that this app is one of the things that pushed people over the edge, more or less led to the truck convoy, the Freedom Convoy. And the Freedom Convoy went on for 3 weeks because stubbornly Trudeau wouldn't come out and meet with people. And guess what? Today, well, not guess, but today is the 2-year anniversary of Trudeau invoking the Emergencies Act. So he did it on Valentine's Day in 2022. So it's 2 years, and then it's a beautiful day today. Everybody's using this as a perfect excuse to hit the government with lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit.
Yeah, I really like this. I saw this first from Keith Wilson on X, and he said, breaking on the second year anniversary of the federal government illegally invoking the War Measures Act, which has now been deemed by a federal court judge that it was illegal that they invoked this. And previously it was deemed legal, the protest entirely. It's not that it was ever deemed illegal. At what point did they say that it wasn't? Well, they have no legal standing to do that anymore. Against the citizens and targeting key protesters in Ottawa by freezing their bank accounts. Now, it's one thing to go in and beat them up and shoot rubber bullets at people that are parking in the streets, but they went after their bank accounts. Like, we're talking about entire families, people that were just happened to be part of it, or people that donated to it. I went to a recent gathering, and I was speaking to somebody, and he says, I know people personally that had their bank accounts frozen just for donating. And this is the crazy thing, like, just for donating to a political cause. Now, this gets into the realm of actually a breach on freedom of speech and freedom of expression, because political expression is protected speech in our charter.
It actually sent shivers to protesters and others, but it sent shivers in parts that people hadn't anticipated. It made our trade partners scared. It made corporations scared. It made other governments scared to see that the government of Canada was freezing bank accounts. Like, that's the stuff you do to despot dictators. You freeze Fidel Castro's assets. But now we were doing, I mean, think of how much this is all unraveled just in the last month, right? I mean, the Emergencies Act was invoked because Trudeau wouldn't come out. So Trudeau needs an excuse to invoke the Emergencies Act. So he goes to the RCMP, and the RCMP gives him this bullshit story. Oh, there's Diagolon, there's guys at Coots conspiring to murder officers, blah, blah, blah. So then Trudeau invokes the Emergencies Act. It turns out now it was illegal to invoke the Emergencies Act, and all the reasons that he had been given to do it were also bogus. I mean, the case is disintegrating at Coots. The case is disintegrating against Tamara. And now all these lawsuits are coming out. It's going to be, the federal government's going to be defending itself, whether it's Trudeau or the next government, against these lawsuits for years to come. And,
I want to jump in on what you said there, though, is the RCMP never recommended the Emergency Act to be...
They say they never did, but Mendocino and others threw them under the bus by saying that they had.
Right, but their official testimony under oath at the POEC was that they did not ask for that. So somebody's lying, right? So somebody's lying.
Yeah. But I definitely have a bunch of videos on my hard drive showing Mendocino and Lametti and others saying in Parliament saying, "Oh, we're doing this under recommendation from the RCMP." Yeah. So 2 years later, under cross-examination, the RCMP is like, "We didn't do this," but. And some of this is unfortunate. I was talking about this at the dinner table because this is not just happening federally; it's happening provincially. Like, Alberta is in the same boat. Alberta had a ruling a year ago that its COVID mandates were done illegally. And subsequently that opened the door for a bunch of lawsuits. So the Alberta government is being sued by businesses that were affected. Mm-hmm. And the one lawsuit you just showed the screen capture, there's 2 others today. There was another class action one by people similar to the one you showed, similar to Tamara and Chris. And then there was one by a medical equipment producer who said that they were given an incorrect. Anyways, what I was saying is, talking about this at the dinner table, my boy said, "Well, who pays for all this?" It's like you and I. It's sad. It is.
That's the sad part. Because I want to see Trudeau have to pay some fine. So here's the thing: in the lawsuit, they actually wrote this out. I think I have the paper here.
Keith, Tamara's loss or not? I don't think Tamara's and Chris and them are suing Trudeau directly. They're going after the federal government. But there is another one. I had it on my timeline not too long ago. There is another one that names Chrystia Freeland and Trudeau directly, or maybe it's they have been named, and that's fine too. I mean, I hope they do that, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I don't think that a politician should be, um, what's the word? Protected from lawsuits or sheltered or whatever the term is, just because they're politicians. I think if they act in bad faith, I think they should be held accountable. And I think Trudeau acted in bad faith, and Freeland in this one, and they should be held accountable. I don't think they should have immunity just for being elected and hiding behind, cabinet confidentiality and bullshit like that.
Yeah, because
And then,
then what
yeah,
would that lead to? Like, what's the end of that?
yeah.
Where do you, to what extreme do you go where you can have immunity from things where you break the law and knowingly
Yeah.
break the law? And in this case, yeah, the what was written up in this, it was paraphrasing it, is it's an incentive to future governments not to do that, and this is the whole point of bringing lawsuits and having the ability to sue your government. But that being said, if you're suing the government, you're punishing the taxpayer for some rogue politician who does what he wants to do, and that sucks. And I'm not saying don't sue the government. I'm saying that there should be an open door to sue Trudeau and sue Freeland and all of the people that were involved, including Mendocino, who lied in the House of Parliament.
Mendocino Committee's in court right now. I mean, he's having to defend his actions. It's getting complicated. Now, what's really interesting, and I don't think we've seen the end of this, because let me give you an example. Like the poor guys, the Coots 4, for instance, there's not a lot of lawyers stepping up to defend them, right? Because if you're a lawyer defending one of those poor guys, you're going to get your $400,000 or whatever. You're going to get your money, but you're going to work for it, and that's it. And if you're successful, they're released. If you're unsuccessful, you get $400,000. Now, in the next phase, if the Coots 4, for instance, are all exonerated, now the lawyers will line up for damages. So in the next phase, so the Tamaras and all these lawsuits, now they're going for damages. And lawyers are going to line up like vultures for that one, because now you get to sue the government for $100 million in damages. Some lawyers will do that for a cut. They'll say, hey, I'll take 5% of that. I'll take 5 million if you win. So there's a whole other set of lawyers that will help you go for damages. They won't help you defend yourself, but if you're, if you've been hurt by the government, that's a whole bunch of different lawyers. So yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess.
It is a mess, but I'm happy to see that we're getting to this part of it, and where they're actually effectively being able to come forward and see some lawsuits happening. Because I mean, at this point, Tamara and Chris are still going through court. You still have two guys in jail in Coots, and this it's not over. It's not even over, and yet
Tamara and Chris, their lawyers right now are, her mischief trial started in September. It went on for like 35 days, and then the court ran out of time. So then the lawyers are now, they've been spending 3 weeks trying to come up just with a date for when to resume. They won't resume until March, April at this point. And the Coots 4, and what's happening during all of this? Have you watched the Liberal MPs scrambling? I mean, they're trying to, your introductory video was awesome. Like I think the cockroaches is one good analogy. I think right now it's more like rats. I mean, they're trying to find some silver lining in anything. Nobody's listening to them. Are you listening to, Minister Miller talking about, we're going to build 5,000 houses? Dude, we need 500,000. So, move on. Is anybody listening to Guilbeault right now? I mean, Seamus O'Regan tried to make an announcement today. Like today was the day they rebranded the carbon tax.
And what is it? What's the new brand?
It's literally called the carbon rebate. It went from the climate change rebate to now it's literally the carbon rebate. And then they're like out there like seals applauding and reminding everyone, 8 out of 10 Canadians get more back than they pay, blah, blah, blah.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
They don't.
I posted my gas bill the other day, and I was just shocked. It's
Well, and
hundreds of
here's the
dollars.
other part of it that doesn't get added into the calculation. So they'll say that, well, X amount of Canadians, they don't use that much gas and they don't use that much for heating or what have you. So they're not paying that much initially in the carbon tax. But where are they paying it where they don't realize they're paying it? All the places where they're buying food, something needed to be transported. Anytime that somebody on the entire supply chain used a hydrocarbon.
You won't even be able to transport the food because Minister Guilbeault this week said that he's cutting off financing to build more roads. Like, he literally said that this week. Like, we're not going to build any more roads.
Well, for one, he doesn't have the power to do that. It's the municipal governments that do that.
It's an insane comment. It just shows how much of a lunatic he's become, right?
Oh, it's great. Keep going, Guilbeault.
Yeah, keep going.
And it's funny because it's one of the first things that people, because I'm very libertarian oriented, right? I want the government to do the least amount possible. And I'll always get in arguments with people like, who's going to build the roads then? And that's always the question. Well, when you go with Guilbeault, who's going to build the roads then? Because you want a big government. You want to turn around and not build any roads, period. Like, actually, as a libertarian, I think that, at least if the government's not building the roads, people will step up and make them. Like, that's the way it goes, really.
That's kind of how it went, actually. Pre 1960s, who built roads?
People who own land.
Yeah, people would build a little chunk of road on their land, and then somebody else would connect to their road, and then the next thing you know, I mean, yeah, like, there's no governments that were building roads in the 90s. That's an interesting topic, right? I mean, I've always said, like, you can go if between the two extremes of full-on government looks after everything in your life and absolutely zero government. Zero government's possible. I mean, humanity existed basically without governments for eons and eons, and it wasn't that bad. I mean, I definitely prefer I prefer no government to the one we have now.
Oh,
I mean, the
absolutely.
one we have now is setting
I'm
us
not an
backwards.
anarchist. I don't think that we need to have like a power vacuum. No, absolutely, there's rules for governments, but it's like, if that's the argument that, okay, we need a government to build roads. Well, we don't want this government because they want to not build roads. That's really what it comes down to.
But this government at this point is focused on, we're going to build roads, we're going to build houses, we're going to build, like, there. It's like, no, you wrecked all that shit. Don't worry about it. Go back to what you're supposed to do.
Speaking of wrecking stuff, well, so I had Twos on the podcast last week, and I think everyone needs to go back and watch the podcast with 222 minutes. Fantastic. It went an hour over, and we just couldn't stop laughing. It was a lot of fun, but there was a suggestion made during that. I don't know. We just happened to be talking about web domains and things like that, and he threw out a suggestion that somebody ought to take the Marty Up North domain and turn it into a vegan cooking website. And, well, somebody obliged. This is amazing. I love how the internet works. Here's the martyupnorth.ca. It's welcome to cooking vegan with Marty. I love this.
And that's no joke. At first I thought that was just a screen capture. No, it's not it's not a meme. It's
the URL.
Somebody went and got the martyupnorth.com domain.
Yeah, it's up. It's up. Go check it out. You can check out these very malnutrition. I mean, no, it would be good for sides, but you get a little anemic if that's all you ever ate.
Shame on you guys. Shame on Twos, because the fall, that was on Friday, and then me and him on Sunday went to an event together. Actually, that was a fun event. Me and Twos paired up, and we went to an Alberta NDP town hall meeting.
That's awesome. Going behind enemy lines and seeing what they're talking about.
Just a quick story. Actually, two stories from that one. Maybe I'll tell the sad one, but the funny one is, Alberta, the Alberta MLAs, almost all of them have me blocked. They have me blocked, and some of them have blocked me for so long they don't even know what I look like anymore. So I walked in there, and I made fun of this on Twitter because I had my orange. I work for a company that orange is a high visibility color, right, in the oil industry.
Or even hunting.
This orange. Yeah. So I had this orange fleece, which was done for high visibility. It's perfect orange NDP color. I walked in there and they're all thanking me. Hey, Marty, where are you from? And blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we're buddies. And then the question period started. And then they handed me the microphone and I had like 14 cameras on me because there's like 60 people in the room. So they're like all anxiously videotaping me. And then I start talking and then the cameras all came down.
Oh, nice. That's funny. What'd you ask? What did you
Yeah.
ask?
I was basically refuting the opening comments of one of the speakers. So the main speaker was Joe Ceci, who used to be Alberta's finance minister under the NDP government. That he was doing mental gymnastics. I mean, he's against Alberta's having its own pension plan purely because Danielle proposed having her own pension plan,
Right.
and he's having to do crazy contortions to try and justify his stance. And so I simply brought up points to refute his comments. And actually, I can tell. You can tell when you're in a room and you're talking, and you get people that would have started out a little bit, clenched up and again immediately against what I was going to say, but I made points where you can't ignore it. Yeah, I mean, one of the ones, a big point that I made is along the lines of Alberta over contributing as a province to the Canada Pension Plan, and I explained that, and it's an eye opener for some people. So
Well,
can
it's
I
big.
tell one
Yeah.
quick story? I want to tell one quick story about that one, and I told it on Twitter. So I spoke. They passed around the microphone. A bunch of people spoke, and then suddenly they passed the microphone to a young man, and he told us, he's like, I'm probably the youngest guy here. I'm 21. And he spoke. He said he had been working since he was 18. He was now going to college, and he basically made this weird story that if Alberta adopts this Alberta pension plan, I'm leaving the province because this is unreasonable. So I found his comment weird. I turned to Twos and I literally said, "Oh, that's so sad. I hate hearing stories like that. To me, the kid's story was sad and he was misguided." The event ended, people scattered, and I was talking to people, and I saw the kid in the corner. I said to Twos, I said, I just want to go talk to the kid real quick. I walked over to the kid. I said, hey, kid, can I just give you a little bit of fatherly advice? Don't worry about this stuff that you're hearing and this, don't worry about if the CPP will be here in 40 years, man. You're doing the right thing. You're going to school. You're going to college. Work hard, and I'm pretty confident things will work out good for you. And then that's it. I walked away.
Mm-hmm.
And there was two ladies there with him, and they looked at me. Anyways, we moved into another part of the hall. They kicked us out of that room. We're standing in the hall, still chatting.
Like they kicked
And
you
one of
out,
the
or that was just like
they kicked us all
they
out.
kicked all okay,
We're
not just you
we're in
two.
a community. Yeah, we're in a community hall. They're like, okay, move out, folks, if you want to keep talking.
Right, not
we
by
have
the
to clean this
collar.
room.
Right.
Yeah, no. And all of a sudden I'm talking, and one of the ladies brings the kid right back to me. And I thought, oh, okay, here we go. He's going to say thank you, right? He's had 2 seconds to, fuck, man. Sorry. It caught me off guard. The lady's like, go ahead, tell him what you want to say. And then he goes on to tell me, oh, well, there's other reasons I want to leave the province. I don't like what Danielle's doing with this and that. And I was like, holy shit, man. So that lady that was with him, whether it's his mother or a guardian or something, I don't know what, she wanted him to be the victim. And when I went over there the first time and I wouldn't allow him to be the victim and I gave him advice, she literally brought him back to double down on his victimhood and wanted, like, she desperately wanted him to be a victim. And me and Twos would have nothing to do with that. We're like, dude, like, what did she, anyways, I wasn't going to verbally spar with him or her, but I thought about it for a long time. I hate seeing stuff like that. That poor kid, long story short, the brainwashing on the left, the victim card, and it makes me sick. I thought about it for 24 hours after that. Like, that poor kid, instead of being encouraged, he's being victimized by people for their agenda, not his. So
well, and it's
don't
abusive.
do that, folks.
It really is abusive, in my opinion, in my estimate. Like, anytime you take people and you tell them that there's nothing you can do you'll always, there's always going to be some bad guy coming after you and he'll always win, then you'll never get ahead in life. We've seen this. We've seen this with like particular groups of individuals throughout history, and it always works. It always works. The only way to get yourself out of that funk is to get out and realize that that's BS. And if you work hard, you'll get somewhere. It doesn't matter where you came from, what religion, any of that stuff.
Yeah, you're in charge of your own destiny. And and to that kid, I mean, if I could see him again, I'd be like, I'm sure you are discriminated against, we all are, but don't just fight back and ignore it and do your own thing. Like it's I didn't like that. So thanks for letting me share the story.
That gives me new motivation and wanting to encourage more people and actually put words of encouragement out there, because I think people need that. I think that's what people need more than anything, because that kind of attitude is going to it'll get us all nowhere. That's at the end of the day, those victims will eventually become the product of their own making. They will be victimized, but they're the victims of that ideology, and that's very sad. It really is. Actually, holy cow.
Yeah.
Where do we go from that? Like, where do we go from that message?
Jagmeet.
Okay, Jagmeet. Yeah, all right. Actually,
I'm thinking of NDP. So since I'm thinking of the NDP, I'm thinking of Jagmeet, who loves to play the victim and go after all these false bullshit. Jagmeet. Oh, I'm the hero defending Canadians against big bad Loblaws. Like, seriously.
Which, incidentally, and I want to bring, because you brought the Loblaws thing up, Jagmeet's been on a crusade against Loblaws, right? Totally a crusade. And then as soon as they do some anti-competitive stuff or against, business, monopoly-esque type of stuff with Manulife, I think it was Manulife, and fixing prices so that, you can only buy pharmaceutical stuff through your benefits through their agencies. Right. Zip. Nothing out of Jagmeet. Like, nothing. I haven't heard anything from Jagmeet about that whole story. It disappeared. It came up on Monday. It was gone on Wednesday, and that was it. And that was some actual stuff, anti-competitive, antitrust behavior that you think would come out of the NDP as the big talking point.
Wow. You're making me think of two things, but on Jagmeet, like he's attacking. Well, first of all, let's say what he said, right? Like Jagmeet said now that he will what's the word, void or let their agreement with the Liberals expire on March 1st.
Because I have it here.
Sure.
If you can't come to an agreement on March 1st on pharmacare, are you willing to horse trade that promise that you want to have for other things in the deal to try and get other things done to keep it going forward?
We've really just been really clear that this has now got to the point where we had a deadline last year. They missed it. We agreed to an extension. If they don't make this deadline again, then they would have broken the agreement, and we can't continue with the agreement. That doesn't mean we can't find ways to pass other bills that we still support. That doesn't mean that we can't continue to put pressure on things like the anti-scab legislation that we want to see happen. We're going to continue to put pressure on them to follow through on what we forced them to do in dental care. So there's things that we'll continue to work on, but the agreement, as it stands, will be broken, and that will no longer exist.
So pharmacare or bust by March 1st.
Okay, so that's what he had to say there. Does that mean anything? Does that mean that we're not going to have we're going to have a vote of no confidence? Not likely, not in my estimate.
Well, we if we're lucky, our petition from 2 weeks ago will be is due in about 3 weeks, so we could have one because of that petition. I doubt it, but yeah, no, Jagmeet is. I'll believe that when I see it. But back to your earlier point, he's definitely two-faced. I mean, he's against Loblaws, and then when Loblaws does something good, he doesn't promote them. He only goes after them when they're doing bad things. I mean, and I don't think Loblaws does anything bad, by the way. I mean, to me, Loblaws is an organization, Canadian or institution, been here 60 years, hires 200,000 people, provides an essential service, and their profit margins are like 3 or 4%. And then even here in Alberta, they announced Loblaws owns Shoppers Drug Mart, like it's like one of their divisions, and they investing another like 70 to 100 million dollars to add like 50 clinics at Shoppers Drug Marts, and those clinics are super handy, right? Like it's where you get your vaccine, it's where you get your travel vaccines. You can even go there to get diagnosed for minor stuff, whatever. And so that's great work done by Loblaws, and not a peep on that from Jagmeet.
Well, I was actually going the other way. So the accusation being hurled at them is antitrust, that they're going to be putting small pharmacies out of business because mom and pop pharmacy won't be able they won't be able to use their benefits at these other places because they're excluding them from the benefits. So people can't fill their prescriptions at their local mom and pop, so they have to go to Shoppers Drug Mart, that kind of thing. Now out here, I use Shoppers Drug Mart or London Drugs, which are both under the same envelope. I don't, there isn't a mom and pop where I live, but it's an interesting concept though, that, this is normally like a left wing talking point of why we need to get rid of big business or why we need to fight against big business, and he hasn't taken that opportunity at all.
The NDP's lost. They're lost. I mean, they don't know what they stand for anymore, right? I mean, they used to be. Just think of again back to the events of COVID. I mean, they should have been defending workers who got laid off for refusing to take the vaccine. That should have been something front and center for the NDP to defend. And hey, let me tell you another story, a funny one. Again, back to the town hall when I went on Monday. The Joe was making so many mental gymnastics to be against the Alberta pension plan. He literally said that if Alberta implements its own Alberta pension plan, it'll have to hire 5,000 workers to administer it, and that's a waste of money. I'm like, wow, you're suddenly against hiring more government workers, Joe? Wow. Okay. Like, bravo, 10 out of 10 on those on that contortion. Like, and I pointed that out to him, and then he's just like, oh, I'm moving on. Okay, whatever. Like,
well, you know what? And this is interestingly like going to be a difficult point when it comes to statistics and analysis when the Conservatives get in. Because they are getting it. I mean, it's like, let's not joke about this. They're going to be the next majority government in Parliament. Now, what the Liberals and the NDP, wherever they are, they depend on this. When jobs get lost in the economy because of their measures, they just create jobs in the government and they hire people on. They spend your tax dollars to bring jobs and bring the job numbers up. But then we're left with these long-lasting bureaucratic jobs that never go away. They never go away once they're brought in until a Conservative government comes in and says, okay, we got to cut the fat. And then what happens? Well, there's going to be a period of time where those people, if you lay them off because they shouldn't be employed by the government anyway, the job numbers will go way down. And then immediately the media and the Liberals and NDP will come in and they'll say, look how bad a job the Conservatives are doing. The job numbers are down. I think there should be a measure, or there should be something put forward to say a clear delineation between government jobs and private sector jobs. If you have a jobs market, you can't include.
You mean in the measurements or in the reporting or in the measurements. Yeah.
Because they use these statistics for political points, and it's costing it costs us billions a year just to keep these jobs going that they create just to get better statistics while they're in office.
And it's a circular economy, right? I mean, it's like I love the argument of like a government worker who says, well, I pay for my own salary. I'm like, for one cycle, that's it. I mean, it takes 10 government employees paying 10% tax will go back to repay for the first one employee the next year, and after that it's a busted cycle.
It's a snake that eats its own tail. That's what it is.
Yeah, totally. It doesn't work. It's possible. I mean, we live through yes, Poilievre or whoever, the Conservatives have a tough job. They have a tough job in getting rid of the the fat in government. But I always say the answer is there's no reason for people not to be working. Like kickstart the Canadian economy, kickstart the resource sector, kickstart the real energy sector, marine, shipbuilding, automotive, a whole bunch of things. We should easily, if there's 200,000 government employees that lose their job, they should all be hired somewhere else within days. Like there's no, we've done that.
Marty, that's not how it's going to work.
No, I know it's not going to happen, but that's the secret formula, is that you before you start cutting too much, you need to really kickstart the economy.
Well, even if those jobs are available, like this is how I would see it happening. People are comfy doing hardly anything, working for the government. Yeah. They get laid off and they get a check for, unemployment. And then they ride that until it runs out, and then go.
That's why the UBI argument is resonating right now. I mean, we have become a lazy, I hate to say it, but we're a lazy, unproductive society right now. We've become pretty pretty complacent. I mean, we had it easy for a long time. Yeah, I live in a province that did it. I mean, King Ralph Klein came here in the 90s, man, and that public sector, he gutted it. And exactly as predicted, they all went and worked into the energy sector and the private sector, and nobody's services failed. Like people say, oh, the infrastructure and everything failed. It's like, dude, I lived through the 90s, and I'll argue that I had better hospitals and better schools under Ralph Klein than I currently do. And that was after he gutted them. So the fat actually, some organizations get so big that they become inefficient. Like it's there is value in trimming that fat.
Well, absolutely. And would Ralph Klein be able to walk amongst the public?
He did. I told you the story, right? I played poker with him. I mean, I met Ralph Klein at the Yellowhead Casino on a Sunday night, and I played poker. He bluffed me out of a straight. So, and I know who you're referring to right now, walking around the public.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of politicians that can do that these days. Definitely not in Canada. Nope. Justin Trudeau, for example, he can't go anywhere without getting heckled. But if you look south, and you look south where people are a little bit more liberty oriented, let's say. Down in Argentina, they have a president there that's doing a number of things, and he's able to actually go walking around and actually even board airplanes, flying I don't know if he was flying coach, but he was flying on a commercial airplane instead of.
Look at how cool he is, man. That guy is like the epitome of cool. The great sideburns, the crazy hair, like.
And people love him. That's the best part. Is they go on this plane and people are excited to see him. People are happy to see him, and he's taking pictures.
We were like that
everybody.
20 years ago. It's pretty sad, though. It is kind of sad that we've become that politicians are scared of the public. I mean, I know if I ever ran for politics, I'd want to try and do what he.
It means they're doing a bad job. It means they're doing more than a bad job. They're doing such a bad job that people notice, right? Because the government should really just be this thing that exists, and you really hardly ever have anything to do with them. Because they just do certain services. But as soon as they're so encroaching on your life, then it becomes this thing where now I know who you are and I hate you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is Canada now.
Trudeau will have to retire somewhere else. He's never walking around in public. He'll be entitled to 1 or 2 security guards. Actually, he'll probably have to pass a new law, and he'll break the rules, and he'll. Stephen Harper can go to a hockey game. Stephen Harper can go to watch the Flames game or the Oilers. And I know by law, he has 1 or 2 security guards for the rest of his life. That's fair, but not an army and not an entourage. And Stephen can generally walk around. Jean Chrétien can walk around. A lot of the Brian Mulroney, but Trudeau, for him, they're going to have to change the law. I'm sure he's going to ask for more security because he won't be able to live in Canada. He's a hated man. He's a hated man.
He's a hated man. Yeah. He's really stepped into people's lives in a very, very bad way.
It's still crazy though. I mean, you and I'm on Twitter. I'm really on Twitter. You've said it. I tweet a lot and I get a lot of interactions. There's still a lot of people that are not awake, man. Still a lot of people. Like they're not just, I can tell the difference between an account who's sort of just shilling for the Liberals and somebody who's, Cindy from Cape Breton, who's got 400 tweets, who still loves Trudeau. Like, they're out there. It's incredible how many people are unconvinced that that things are bad. I don't know. How can you not? I mean, which video did I see that? I saw there was a politician the other day having a debate with somebody saying, "Oh, inflation's not that bad," and the lady was like, "Have you bought eggs?" That, like, the lady was like just going.
That was Bill Maher. That was Bill Maher.
Oh, that was Bill. Yeah, right.
It was a clip up, but I know that he was talking to a fitness lady. She wasn't even like really that politically aware or anything like that.
He used a weird analogy that, you know, the US won the lottery in terms of COVID, that came out on top of COVID better than anybody else, and blah blah blah.
But he said that inflation wasn't even an issue, and she's like, buy a car, like, buy eggs.
Yeah, buy a car, Bill. Buy eggs. Where have you been? Like, and that's again, if I asked my wife, you know, hey Karen, what do you think inflation's at? She would like immediately go 10%. I mean, even I actually here. These are this is a Walmart bag of peanuts, chocolate coated peanuts. I buy them to go hiking. I'm going hiking this weekend. Mm-hmm. This bag was $1. Okay, at the till, used to be $1. For the longest time, it was $1. It's a bit of a loss leader. It's $1.18 right now. So that's simple math, folks. If it goes from $1 to $1.18, that's 18%. So this bag of peanuts is 18% more than it was a year ago. So don't tell me there's no inflation. And my wife can do the math in her head. The $4.99 butter that's now $6.99, that's huge inflation.
That's big.
Huge inflation.
That's really big. It really is big. And well, we've talked about this before. They try to flub the numbers because
I got to make sure they didn't shrink it too, because they do two things, right? Yeah, they did shrink it because it's 60 grams instead of 75. So that's 40% inflation, because they dropped the volume they took off 15 grams and they jacked it up by 18 cents. Yeah. Bullshit.
Shrinkflation, as they've been calling it.
Yeah,
but
sorry, I had to cut you off.
No, that's fine. I was just talking about how they, when the inflation numbers aren't great, they'll change the way they measure it. Like, literally, that's what they do. Now, for people who don't know how we measure inflation is a monetary phenomena. It's the increase of the money supply. But how they measure it is based on how much products are going up. So they have a basket of goods, a basket of things that they measure and year by year, but then eventually they change out products because they become outdated, they say. So often what they'll do is they'll take new.
I guarantee you they're going to do it right away, Clyde. They're going to do it because they usually do it about the beginning of the year right now. So they have two tricks. Sorry to cut you off, but you're right. They'll either take something out of the basket of goods and replace it with something else, or they'll change the proportion, right? So they'll simplistically speaking, a basket of goods should be sort of 10 different items: a color TV, an orange, a liter of gasoline, a trip to Mexico, whatever, and each worth 10%. But they changed it. Last year they jacked up the proportion of telecommunications. Like, oh, piss off, man. Like, you know, and then they lowered the proportion of rentals. And well, I'm on top of that one. When there's a change, I'll I
want to do a whole show just about that, just talking about what individual items they changed on that, because it's actually that's hard one of the find. Ones that information is not easy to find. And I'll tell you one thing, it's not.
I found it. I've linked it now. I know where to find it. But
not only that, but people compare inflation to other countries. No countries use the same CPI. Nobody. So the basket of goods is different in every country. So don't bother comparing inflation from us to the United States. It just does not work.
No. Yeah. No, I hate that they do that, because you can. It's actually, yes. You'd have to do a bit more analysis to compare inflation in, say, 1980 to today, right? I mean, in 1980 the components of say consumer goods in a basket of 1980 didn't have VCRs and big screen TVs and cell phones, whereas the component today has those. What would you have in 1980? Oh God, life in 1980 was so easy, man. I mean, you went to Canadian Tire and there was 3 kinds of hockey sticks and 2 brands of skates, and life was simple. Life was simple.
I'll get the DeLorean. Hang tight.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Marty, where can people find you?
Marty Up North on Twitter and Marty Up North on YouTube.
Don't forget
yeah.
martyupnorth.ca. That's definitely another great place where we can find you.
So our good friend Vesper went and bought the domain martyupnorth.com, and he passed it on to me. And then I don't know who has the other domain. I suspect it's Twos who has the other domain. I didn't know you could buy a domain for $15. It's not. Maybe I'll hold an auction and then see if I can get a few bucks for the martyupnorth.com. I'll get you guys. Twos I'll get. Yeah, that was a good interview. You guys did good. That was a really good one.
All right. We'll do this again next week.
Cheers, folks.